Okay, I want to talk about the electronic request-to-speak system with combined electronic voting. And I want to show you a couple little troubleshooting techniques here. First of all, when you first power the unit up, you're going to see these LEDs blinking here. There's 4 LEDs across the top. They should all be blinking. If they aren't, then there's something not correct. And the most likely cause of that, we're going to turn it up and look underneath here. And there's one cable. This is the data cable that provides data to the driver board. This board in the upper right corner of the box is driver to drive to the displays. These other 2 wires are power connections. So we have power to the main board, and we have the data connection to the driver board from the main board. And then over here is the DC power coming in. It's just a 4-pin plug going off to a wall adapter. Okay, now we're going to flip it back down again. And so there we see the LEDs blinking. So the most likely cause is the cable became unplugged inside. Now we also have these outputs here, and we drive them to the wall display. Now we have this connected to the voting display. Normally you'll have 2 cables, but because I want to have a 5-foot distance here, 1 cable is adequate. Since these outputs are all in parallel, I will normally drive 2 cables from here to the wall display and then use a splitter at the other end so that I get a higher current drive to the wall display. Now the other cables I want to show you is the buttons. These LEDs should all be on. That indicates there's power to all these connectors. And each of the stations connect. There's station 1, button 1. It just plugs in. And to verify that it works, you press the request button. It should turn on the light. Tap it again, it should go off. Press the talk button, it should go on. Tap it again, it should go off. If you have either one of those on, pushing the 3rd button turns them both off. And that's the same thing for all stations. They're labeled 1 through 12. And if you happen to have or need for more stations, instead of using timers here, we would put more stations. So that gives you up to 12 stations in this configuration, and we have 4 additional ports, and we've got them all wired together in parallel to operate the timers. So this is the main unit, and in the back here we have the timer output, which is the middle jack going through a little 4-conductor phone cord over to the timer input right here, and this unit provides power to the entire system. This cord here plugs in and provides power to the timers. And now we're going to look over here at this chairperson station. If I pull the main power, you'll notice the timer goes out. I want to pull this cord here, this timer goes out. I pull this cord here, they both go out, because this one comes from this unit. So the power for the timers comes from this unit through this cable to power those. And since all 4 jacks are in parallel, it doesn't matter which order that you put these in. You often will get a red, yellow, green unit or some other type of wall display, so there's a 4th jack available for additional equipment. And then pressing reset button in any one of these units causes the timer to become active. You notice the hello is error. It should change to 1. That means they're all communicating. Okay, one more thing I want to show you. Here's a test button. And if I tap this test button, it doesn't affect the timers, but it does affect the wall displays for the voting. So I'm going to tap it once. We're going to see it going through a test pattern on the vote wall display. And also you're going to see on the request to speak station the various test patterns show up on the lower left corner of the queuing station controller. You're also going to see LEDs flashing through some pattern. On the voting system, you're also going to see LED patterns light. That indicates that we have signal going to the display. Now I'm going to tap this button here. You notice it's stopped. The test mode stopped. As soon as you press a button on here, the test mode should be disabled. So I'm going to turn all these off. Tap the test button one more time. It starts the test pattern all over again, and these LEDs start blinking. The minute I press any button here, it goes out of test mode back to run mode. So you can abort the test mode by simply pressing any button on one of the units. Now I can press the test button once, I can press it a second time, and this runs a different type of a pattern through all the displays, and you'll watch it go through a very long sequence that shows all the different patterns that this thing will generate. Sometimes there's also a display above this, which is not on this particular example, but that shows total results, and those lights will also be blinking during the test phase. Now there's two more positions of the test button before it starts over again. The first two are all we really care about in this case here. The other test patterns produce different types of LED patterns. You'll see some patterns showing up on here, on the request to speak controller, and then other patterns showing up over here on the voting system controller. But the most important ones are the first two that we just mentioned. A couple other little details. We talked about these LEDs blinking. There's also an LED here that blinks in sync with these LEDs. There's also an LED right here that blinks. And if I press a button on the request to speak system, you're going to see the top LED also blink. And if you press this button on the vote controller, you're going to see additional flashes show up on the voting system controller. And that's some of the basic troubleshooting techniques of when you're trying to make sure this thing is connected and working correctly. We do have a document that describes in more detail some of the different steps, which you will get with this system as well.